is now.
Okay, I'm joined here with Paul. If you'd like to tell us a bit about the ghost sightings of Bolling Hall.
Well, Bolling Hall is, according to some sources, the most haunted building in Yorkshire. There's a long record of sightings, newspaper cuttings. In fact, some major national newspapers in the 30s and 40s carried reports of various hauntings. Also, some of my predecessors that have been into the building while I've been working here have told me many stories of things that I've seen. So many that you could probably fill a big book. I've been here about 12 years, just about 12 years, and I've seen a couple of things myself.
Nice one. So obviously you've had quite a few paranormal groups turn up and investigate. Have they ever found evidence what's made you think that could be a ghost or what like that?
Yeah, there's been a few quiet nights, but we've also had some spectacular nights. We've had coins falling from ceilings, cups being thrown, plates being thrown, people's faces apparently changing, people's hair being pulled, people feeling like they've had the breath, some heavy breath on the back of the neck. People have fainted, people have broken into sweat, started crying for no apparent reason. There's a long list.
So the room what we're in at the moment is the ghost room. If
Yes.
you'd like to tell us a bit about this room.
Well, the ghost room, it's called the ghost room because of a very famous event. In 1643, there was a large battle about 4.5 miles away from the building I'm sat in now, called Atwalton Moor, the Battle of Atwalton Moor. It was between the Royalist forces and the Parliamentarian forces in the English Civil War. Now, the Royalist forces won the battle, and the commanding officer, a man called William Cavendish, who was the Earl of Newcastle at the time, personal friend of Charles I, apparently, he became a guest in this building, because the family that lived here at the time were the Tempest family, and Richard Tempest, who was the head of the household, was actually a colonel in the Royalist forces. And in 1643, if you looked out of the windows from this building, you would have seen straight into Bradford town centre. It was an absolutely perfect vantage point. And 2 previous attacks had been taken place against Bradford, both being beaten off. And in one of the attacks, one of the Royalist lieutenants had been murdered in cold blood. So William Cavendish knew that he wanted vengeance for this horrible act. Apparently, the story goes, he fell asleep in this very room that we're sat in now, and before he did so, he issued an order. And the order was that the following day his forces, which were camped around the outside of the building, they were to attack Bradford and basically kill every single person in the town. No matter how old, how infirm, how young, everyone was going to die. Now, during the night, apparently, he was visited by a lady in white who proceeded to approach the bed and pull the bedclothes off and crying, say, "Pity poor Bradford," over and over again. Now, so taken aback, so shocked by this event was Mr. Cavendish, that the following day he left this room and issued new orders. His forces were still to attack Bradford, which they actually did. They were to capture Bradford, which they did, but they were only to actually fight back, fight people who were fighting back to them. So instead of 3,000 people dying, which was the population of Bradford at the time, only approximately 10 people actually did. Now, whatever occurred in this room, nobody knows, but whatever occurred changed the history of Bradford.
That's an interesting story, like that. So, has there been any modern sightings, recently sightings?
Not in the ghost room, but it's quite common for things to occur. I think probably the last thing that I can recall happening was in the library, which is a room downstairs. We have a game called Nine Men's Morris, which is an ancient game mentioned in Shakespeare, etc. And we've got that set up for children. They can actually play the game while they're in the museum. And I instinctively check this game every single morning before we open for the public, and all the pieces that are used in the game are all lined up at both sides of the board. Now, a few weeks ago, I went through that room, checked the board, and all the pieces were perfectly lined up as they should be. I went to open the toilets, And as I came back, I passed through the same room and casually glanced at the board. All the pieces had been moved, as if somebody was halfway through a game of Nine Men's Morris.
Yep.
Now, there was nobody else in the building at all,
interesting.
except myself.
Obviously, you're open to the general public. Has there been sightings in daytime, like where just general visitors are coming?
On and off, yeah. Quite often you get people that's actually purposely coming to try to see ghosts.
Okay.
We've had people who have approached the building and they've been coming around the back of the building, and one of the rooms that you can see from there is a Civil War parlour. And on a number of occasions, we've had people coming through the main doors and they've reported seeing a lady in white waving at them from the Civil War parlour.
Interesting.
And they've casually mentioned this, they've come in, and usually, by and large, they're their own people in the actual building, the first visitors of the day, and there's none of us dressed in white.
Yeah, that's very interesting, so, would you say this room is very active, or would you say that there's another room which is more active?
This isn't overly active, ironically, but the hotspots, I'd like to call them, are probably the blue room, and slightly less the green room, which is next to the blue room.
Is there reasons behind the names of the rooms at all?
Basically, it's as simple as the beds that are in them rooms are blue and green. It's as simple
it's always
as that.
been that fact. It's always been that, like.
No, in the early years of it being a museum, because it's been open since 1915, in the original guidebooks they were numbered, and if you look very carefully over the doorways of each of the rooms, they actually still have the numbers.
So?
But we refer to them by their names now.
Yeah. So, like, talking serious events, like, has there been any serious events where public's been in doing ghost hunts and they've had to, like, literally run away, like, they've been panicked, like, something bad's happened, like, I don't believe in this, but spirit possession. Stuff like that.
We've had eventful nights. We had one particular night where we had a group in, and as soon as they came through the door it started. There was 30 people in the group, and the group that had actually booked the hall for the night weren't quite ready, so they decided to ask the public that were with them to walk around the hall and get themselves used to the building before the lights went off. 29 people went into I think it was the east wing, and one girl went into the west wing on her own. And I was kind of stood between both groups. And all of a sudden this girl let out a scream and came racing past me. I followed her, and she reported that she felt her hair being pulled, and also a heavy breath on the back of her neck. And she was inconsolable for a while. In fact, for the rest of the night we had to leave her in the library, which is the base room for these haunted nights, and we had to sit with her all night. On the same night, there was another girl who actually fainted in what we call the couch room, and luckily her boyfriend was with her, and he had to sit with her all night in the library, so the library got quite full that night. And I think it was on the same night. There was a skeptic, a hardened skeptic, who was talking to me outside, and I knew he was very, very sceptical. And he was doing, I think it was called scribing, where apparently you sit opposite someone, or you look into a mirror and you just look at each other, and apparently your face can change. And he had a mirror which he could kind of see into himself, but at the same time he was sat opposite a lady, and this lady let out a scream. And she said that his face had changed into the face of an old lady. And as she was screaming, he kind of glanced into the mirror, and lo and behold, he declared that his face had actually changed.
So what's your view then? Do you think Bolling is haunted? Your personal opinion?
It's definitely haunted. It's a very, very active building.
Nice and well. We've got quite a lot of scientific equipment, so we'll try and figure out what's going off, or even if we can prove it's haunted, which, you know, I've never done, but I'm hoping one day I can actually prove something's haunted. So I can't wait to get started.
Wish you luck.
Thank you. Cheers mate, thanks.